Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making millions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/hidden. Protect yourself now at aura.com/hidden.
Hey, before your Q3 call, I've got the campaign brief ready, built from last quarter's data and the competitive landscape.
Great. Did you include the differentiation angle the CMO asked for?
Already in there. 3 angles no competitors using right now. Just need your approval.
Approved. Thanks. Oh, agents, where would we be without you?
Somewhere with a lot more tabs open.
Create your first Monday agent in minutes at monday.com.
Craig Domann, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you very much, Marcus. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you on the show. You're a veteran NFL agent, sports attorney, coach, podcast host, author. The list goes on and on and on. 35 plus years in the industry. So as an NFL agent with so much experience, how did you get started? How did you get into this industry?
Well, you got to remember when I first got in, we didn't have the internet. We couldn't be doing what we're doing right now on Zoom. But I had a passion for sports, and I spent a couple years in accounting and was bored out of my mind. And so I knew I needed to do something that was connected to sports and business. And so graduated from law school and started my own business representing all different types of athletes. And then I kind of focused on football for 3 decades. And then it kind of evolved into NIL towards the last 2 to 3 years. But I would say that for anybody, and I help a lot of athletes make the transition, because football has a shelf life. You can't play football forever. You can play soccer, that kind of football, for a long time. But football, American football, when you hit 30, that's like you're almost a dinosaur. And so I always tell guys, you've got to look at what are your natural talents? What are your natural gifts? So I would say for anybody listening, what do you like to do? What do your friends tell you that, oh, you're really smart in this area? And then I would look at where are your skills, because you might have a passion for it, but if you haven't got the education for it or the experience for it, it's going to be tough. So you got to have both of those. And where those two things intersect is going to be a career that's going to be a good fit for you.
So what if someone is a fantastic athlete, football player, but maybe they are introvert and a bit shy and not this out and about on social media, and maybe doesn't have a very big persona, so to speak? How can someone like that still leverage NIL?
Well, NIL is a combination of revenue share and marketing. I would say 99% of the athletes are going to maximize their NIL general revenue from their performance on the field. And a few, let's say like a quarterback that's for a top 10 team in college football, they're going to get advertising and TV opportunities and things like that. So if you don't have the personality for it, you might not get those kind of opportunities, okay? But the bulk of the money is coming from the value that an athlete brings to the institution on the field, on the court, on the pitch, whatever it is.
Interesting. So how do you think that modern NIL choices might impact the player's long-term professional trajectory?
I think the biggest dilemma for student athletes is when the school that offers them the most money is not the best place for them to develop their skills. It's not the place that they're going to get on the field. It's not the place where they can become pro ready. Because if every high school kid aspires, has a dream, wants to play at the highest level in their sport, basketball, you pick the sport. But let's just focus on football for the moment. If you don't get game film and you don't develop, let's say you're a quarterback and you're always QB2. You're the backup quarterback your entire career. There's not going to be a future for you in the NFL. So it's almost better to go to the place where they're going to invest in you on the field, meaning playtime, opportunity, development, than make another 100 grand that you're going to spend it and it's going to be gone and you're not going to get an opportunity to play in the NFL.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I think that's not an easy decision to take also as a player, to take that step back in a sense in order for a delayed gratification.
Here's where it comes down to. If you base all your decision making on monetary factors, sometimes there's going to be an alignment between your decision and your dream. But the one that can guarantee there's going to be an alignment is when you factor in the non-monetary factors in your decision. So the non-monetary factors are, hey, connection with the coach. Are you a scheme fit? Do the guys that are being successful at that school look like you, have the same body type as you, the same skill set as you? And are they putting guys in the NFL at your position? Those are non-monetary. That's not something you can put in the bank. The cash is what you put in the bank. So if you make the decision merely about cash, you might make a grave decision for your future.
And this focus on the monetary things, I guess, has amplified now with NIL. So have you seen a big shift from pre-NIL versus now?
Yes, because some of the schools understand that they need to buy players. They understand that no one's going to go to Lubbock, Texas, unless they give them a lot of money. So what does money do to us? It blinds us. And so what I'm seeing is the change in certain schools pay a lot of money because that's the only way they can get guys to come. And because the money is so big, the players are blinded to the factors that we talked about before. And so they make it about money when they should make it about money and non-monetary factors.
Did pre-NIL, what did players just focus 100% on the sport and not building a brand and things outside of their sport, you would say?
I would say very few thought about their brand pre-NIL. Most of them thought about proximity to home, mom and dad being able to come watch them play, maybe a team that they rooted for when they were a kid. They might have went to the biggest school that wanted them because they wanted to go big time and they wanted to show that they could play at the highest level, whether it was the Big Ten, SEC, whatever it was. But I think those things now are less important because money, it's basically influenced people into making decisions that sometimes are not the best decision.
Yeah. No, it's hard decisions to make, and sometimes these kids are very young, and then it's important to have someone like yourself with experience and someone who can guide them, I suppose.
Yes, and there's a lot of people in the NIL field that are mentoring and guiding these families and their sons to make the best decisions. And then I think there's a lot of people in the business also that are all about making a fast buck, pushing the young man to the school that's paying the most and not thinking about their long-term future.
Is that because the commission, they just want to make the maximum commission?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have somebody that's motivated by money advising you, you're going to find yourself making a decision based upon money. So what I would tell parents is you want to have an advisor that is motivated by money and what's in the best interest of your son long-term. Is this a 4-year decision or a 40-year decision? And if it's a 4-year decision, go ahead, sign up for the money. But if it's a 40-year decision, then let's go to the school where you're going to develop the best opportunity to get on the field, best opportunity to have a pro career, develop so that the NFL drafts you in the top 3 rounds. And then you have another career that might last 10 plus years so that it sets you up for the next 30 after that.
So except for money, like the school that gives you the best opportunities to play and get drafted, more or less.
Very few high school aged athletes are ready for the pros. Very few, especially in the sport of football. They haven't hit their peak in terms of physical performance. So if the goal is to play in the pros, you've got to use college as a training ground a developmental phase to get there. And if you're behind an NFL kind of guy for 3 years, if the school that you go to that's giving you a lot of money, you think they would play you, but they go out because they have the money, they're getting other experienced players out of the portal that they put in front of you every year. You effectively are just an insurance policy in case that player doesn't work out, gets hurt. And so sometimes when you make the most money, you actually are getting paid just to be an insurance player for the school. No bueno, not going to help you, not going to set you up for success in the NFL draft.
Yeah. I read on your website that you had said that everyone has a dream, but not everyone knows the smartest path to get there. And I think that's very true. And what you said also, sometimes these are younger kids and you have people pulling them in different directions, and it just amplifies again the importance of the advisory role.
No question about it. And being a father that has sat in the bleachers, gone through recruiting with both of my boys, seen them both go through trials and tribulations, successes and failures, injuries. One son was an All-American and played in the NFL for 3 years. The other one went to a handful of schools before he arrived at his dream school. Parents have no idea. Just because I was an agent, I had to be aware that you've got to make smart decisions. You've got to give good advice to your kids. And these families typically don't know what they don't know. First time they have a son that's going through this is the first time they've gone through it.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Were you advising your kids as well on these type of things?
Yeah. So basically, for both of my boys, I was their father, I was their coach, and I was their agent, which created an interesting dynamic because sometimes we get on the phone, they would say things like, "Hey, Pops, I need Dad today." Okay. That was a signal. They didn't want to talk business. They didn't want me giving them any counsel. They wanted to bend my ear and vent about something. And then there's other times they'd be like, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. What do you think?" And now I'm being their agent. Okay. And so both of my boys had transfer opportunities and both of them chose to stay where they were. But you go through the decision process for them to make the best decision. And I think both of them made the best decision to stay. But if it was a different time and place, it might have been better for them to leave. That's a very unique perspective of being the dad, being the agent, and being the coach. I coached them in high school.
I can understand that as a special dynamic because sometimes kids don't want advice from their parents just because it's their parents. And in your case, you obviously has the track record to prove that you know what you're doing. But have you felt like they are a bit hesitant just because it's a father-son relationship?
I would say that was definitely the case when they were like young, 10, 12 years old. But growing up around the business and meeting my clients and hanging out with my clients and going to football camps and vacations and different things with pros, I had the credibility and the street credibility with my kids that they knew I knew what I was doing. And so they didn't always follow my advice, but they sought my advice. I just told them the truth. And then it was up to them to make the decision, whatever they were going to do.
Yeah. So jumping into the representation business agent business, you have negotiated more than $1 billion, I think, in professional contracts. Is that right?
That is correct.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of years, a lot of money, and a lot of clients.
I'm sure. So looking back on that, what do you think makes a good negotiator?
I think my best negotiations have always been when I created a container that the negotiator and I would step into. And we knew our boundaries. We knew what the goals and objectives of both sides were. And we kept our client and the team out of the negotiation so that we could put on our boxing gloves, so to speak, beat each other up a little bit, win some, lose some, and come out with a deal that was a win-win for both. And then what I found over time was the most difficult conversation and the most difficult negotiation was never with the team. It was always with my client. And so simultaneous to having these conversations with the team, I'd be having conversations with my client. Because if your client doesn't understand his market value, you're going to have a problem. Most clients don't undervalue their market value. most overvalue. And so you need to make sure that you don't find yourself in a situation where you've worked your butt off, you've done great job doing comps, finding out the vision for your client from the team. There's a value attached to that vision. If they don't have a vision, your client's not going to get any money. Okay. If they have a big vision, they want him to be the leader, they want him to be the dude. There's money associated with that. But when you're done with that process and you haven't negotiated with your own client, you're going to get like 5 words, a 5-word response from your client. Can you get me more? You go, bro, I got this deal, man. We got it. And it's what he wanted. He's like, I want, 20 million over whatever. And you say, hey, we got it. Inevitably, the first response is, well, can you get me more? Dude, I got you more than we talked about. So the reality of it is you've got to have clear and simple and intentional communication with your client so that when you get to the finish line, everybody knows that's the finish line. And there's nothing worse in a relationship than somebody moves the finish line, but they don't tell you until you cross the one you thought you needed to cross. And so I've never seen a 100-meter race where they move the finish line. It's always 100 meters. But in negotiations on behalf of clients, they'll move the finish line so that you think you're done. And now you're in a dilemma because what you thought was going to be satisfactory isn't. And it's very difficult to go back to a team and say, hey, I know we thought we were kind of done, but we're not.
Yeah, that doesn't look good for you if you have sat in that meeting with the team and you like kinda, agreed or thought you were done and then going back again and asking for more.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good on your client. It doesn't look good on you.
Yeah. So the contracts are mostly judged from the outside, from our perspective, looking from the outside in on the dollar amount, like how much it was 200 million, it was 300 million. Are there any like hidden details or value that doesn't show in the dollar amounts that can be very important to have in a contract?
Oh, absolutely. So like we talked about with NIL is non-monetary factors in making the best decision. Well, when you evaluate a contract, everybody looks at the numbers, but there's non-monetary provisions that make a huge impact on whether it's a good deal for your client or not. So like having a no trade clause, what's guaranteed, what are the forfeiture provisions in the contract? So teams are really good at giving money for the future and then taking it away. So for bad behavior, for not showing up, for different things. And so you want to protect the client from himself by minimizing his exposure to forfeiture. It happens every day. A guy signs a new deal. The agent or the team put out there in the media, signed for X million dollars over Y years. And then 2 years later, he's not getting the money anymore because of either poor performance, bad behavior, some issue that was triggered in the contract that causes that money not to go to the player.
Yeah. It's a lot of factors to take into account. In order to be an agent, you have to have a law degree like you do, or is that just an added benefit?
The NFLPA, as the players union, basically manages the agent community, sets the criteria for education and passing an exam about the salary cap and various issues involved in negotiating contracts. But you have to have a master's degree, but you don't have to have a law degree.
You mentioned before there are good advisors and bad advisors, and the same way, I guess, there are good agents and bad agents. So what do you think are some misconceptions about the role of an agent?
That's a great question. I would say that I'll just give one from 2 different perspectives. One from the team perspective. Teams in the NFL have 53 guys in the active roster, 16 guys in the practice squad. They got 69 guys under their roof. They got a few other guys on injury reserve. And they hope they can be in control of the behavior of the players outside the building, and they can't. They think we can, and we can't either. So I think a misconception from the team is that, well, he's your client. You should be able to get him to stop beating up his girlfriend or whatever. If the player has a bad attitude, if he's got bad behavior, We can't control them, and neither can the team. And then I think the misconception from the player side is that we take a sledgehammer into negotiations and we're going to beat the team negotiator over the head. We are going to take our boxing gloves and beat him up until he gives us what we want. And that's not what happens. It's a business of making sure that you understand how the team values your client, what their vision for his future performance is, his future role. Every player on the team has a role. Not everybody can be the franchise quarterback, but the third tight end has a role. The backup left tackle is very important. He has a role. You've got to understand the role of your client, and if it's in alignment with what your client thinks his role should be. If there's alignment there, there's always a market value for that role. And so it's a communication game and a basically discovery game, due diligence game of finding out, how does the team see your player? How does your player see your player? If there's a gap and there's a difference, you got to figure that out. Got to work that out. Maybe you don't re-sign with the same team and you hit the free agent market because the current team doesn't see your player the way he sees himself. He wouldn't even be happy if he re-signed. So there's no negotiation necessary in terms of talking about money because it's not even a good fit anymore. So a lot of this is figuring out the roles, the fit, the projection. Teams don't care so much about what your player's done. They care more about what he can potentially do in the future. Players think they should get paid for what they've done. Sometimes there's disconnection because the team doesn't see the future as bright as the past, so they don't want to pay the player as much. But the player feels entitled, feels deserving of this big money when the team doesn't see very many more years in the player's career. So it's going to be a problem in negotiations.
Yeah. And I like what you said there also, that it's not like you come in with a sledgehammer and start going wild with that, because you also have, it's a small industry, I assume, like NFL, it's just so many players, agents, teams, and you have a reputation as well. And you don't want to have that you're tough to deal with, because that will make it harder on your players. So you still need, I guess the relationship part is also, and the networking is a very important part as well.
I would say that there's pendulum of 3 locations. Over here, you're very combative and you're a pain in the butt for the teams to deal with. Over here, you're too nice. You think it's about being friends. You think it's about making sure that you don't step on the team's toes. I don't think either one of those are good places to be. The happy medium, the sweet spot, is where you understand what the goals and objectives of both parties are. You know what the team's wanting and you know what your client's wanting. And you try to find a way to maximize your client's value within the scope of where the team sees your player. Now, if your player doesn't see himself in the same place in the same way the team does, then you got to look for a different team. You got to exercise the free agency avenue. But if both parties are committed to staying together, you either got to help the team see more what the player's telling you, or you got to help your clients see more what the team's telling you.
Yeah. It's a balance, for sure.
It's a balance.
Let's jump into mindset. I mentioned in the beginning, in the intro, that you have the Pro Mindset book, podcast, and speaking about that as well. So what is Pro Mindset to you?
Pro Mindset is what defined for me the difference between the player that played 10 years and the player that played 2. The player that didn't get drafted that still played 10 when no one expected him to, and the player that was drafted in the 3rd round because he had the physical gifts, he had he had everything but the mental makeup to be a star, but wasn't because of a lack of a mindset. So if we just take algebra and we use a 2-variable equation, your God-given talent plus the training that you've put in as an athlete, that should dictate and equal your performance. But when you inject a 3rd variable, which happens to be your mindset, then you're not limited just by your God-given ability. You're not just limited by how fast you are because you developed your speed. You're also evaluated on how you show up in big moments. How do you show up in pressure moments? Can the coach trust you? On a scale of 1 to 10, you may not be a 10, you might be an 8, but you're an 8 every day. And the guy you're competing against is a 10. So every time he actually shows up, he's better than you, but he only shows up once every couple weeks. And he's like a 6 the rest of the time. You want to have the best mindset so that you can have the longest career.
So what are some habits that you have noticed with high-performing athletes?
I'll share with you the framework of Pro Mindset. The framework is everybody has a story. And the most important story is not what the media tells the athlete, not what the mom and dad tell the athlete, not what the coach tells the athlete, but what the athlete tells himself. Everybody has like what I call a pocket voice, which is this internal thought about who they are and whether they deserve it, whether they're ready for it. And it's revealed in big moments. The bigger the moment, the more it's contrasts. So like even with FIFA and World Cup, there's been some big moments and some guys like wanted to kick the ball with their left foot because they were left footed. If they would have just used their right foot, and these guys are pros, he probably would have scored. That was a guy that doesn't have a good mindset, doesn't have confidence. And the story is, I needed to kick it with my dominant foot. I saw it live on TV a couple days ago. Bad move, okay? Number one thing is your story, because it's who shows up in the uniform, who shows up on the field, who shows up in the locker room. The second one is your standards. And your standards are how you do what you do. You and I could be doing the same thing. You and I are doing this podcast right now. Maybe I'm only half speed and you're all in, or vice versa, or maybe we're both all in. But it's like, we got to make a decision. Are we all in on this thing or not? Are you thinking about the guy you're going to interview after me? You thinking about where you're going to dinner tonight? Or you in? You locked in? So standards vary. They vary day to day. They vary between different activities. And so I've broken down like this P5 system, which is your preparation, your practice, your pit crew, your preview, and your process. Preparation, everybody knows what that is. Okay. Practice. Do you practice with game-like intensity? Do you practice like it's a real game? So when you're in the real game, you don't have to flip the switch because you had it on the whole time. And I can give a million examples of players and clients that played in the NFL. They practiced like it was a game every day. That's why they played for 10 years. If they would have practiced like some people practice, they might not only played 2 or 3 years. And then your pit crew is your people. And depending on, for quarterback, it's your quarterback coach. It's your mindset coach. If you're a wide receiver, it might be your speed coach. For everybody, it's the medical team. It's all the people that help them stay prepared, stay healthy so they can play. And then your preview is how you visualize what you're going to do before you do it. So the best and most successful athletes have already done it in their mind before they ever did it on the pitch or on the field or on the court. If they have never done it in their mind, that's where you see in soccer, a guy takes a kick, might be inside the box, and it flies. It has no chance to go in the goal. It's like meters above the goal. The only reason those things happen can be poor technique, poor balance, poor footwork, not plant foot by the ball, things like that. But most of the time, it's because he didn't see himself scoring. He didn't see that happening before. So when he got that opportunity, he couldn't do it. And then the last one is your process, which is everything else. Your sleep, your nutrition, your study of your opponent. It's your relationship with your girl. It's all of it. And so you've got to rewrite your story so that you're communicating to yourself at a very high level. You've got to elevate your standards. So all those things we just talked about, you can show up when it's showtime. And then you're going to find yourself on a stage. FIFA guys, that happens to be a pitch. Okay. For some people, maybe making a speech, doing a job interview. How do you show up? And you've got to operate in a performance bubble, which is a mental zone where everything that's for you is with you and everything that's not is blacked out. You've got boundaries and anchors. The boundaries keep everything out that doesn't serve you. The anchors are the things that help you believe in who you are, be confident about what you do, get in the flow, get in the zone, do your thing. And then you're going to be corrupted. There hasn't been anybody that's ever gone into a competition and it went perfectly like planned. There's calls that happen. There's like in an interview, you might get asked a question. If you're giving a speech, you might have a heckler, somebody that you wanted to make an impact on, and they're in the first row of the audience, and you look down and they're either on their phone or they're sleeping when you're saying the most important thing. And that can corrupt you, and you got to know how to self-regulate when those things happen. So that's pro mindset.
I love that. I think Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until he gets punched in the face. And I mean, that can be taken literal and figuratively, of course.
Absolutely. And everybody does typically have a plan, but they don't have a plan for when they get a curveball thrown at them.
Exactly. And I heard another quote on the Modern Wisdom podcast. I don't remember who said it now, but it's we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our standards. And I think that is also a very good one and speaks to what you mentioned as well. This is what we do every day.
And a lot of people, there's another one that says you fall to your level of training. So it's like you have these ideas about how you want to perform, but if you didn't train it, it's very difficult to do it in competition. My whole thing about the pro mindset, elevate your standards, is it's a wake-up call for a player when I tell him his standards should be higher than his coaches. And he looks at me like, what? I'm like, bro, what's your coach's standard for his expectation for you showing up on time? His expectation for you preparing, for watching film, for knowing the game plan for that particular opponent? Whatever it is, yours needs to be more. Because if you fall short on yours, you'll still need his.
Exactly. In 35 years, when you started versus now, have you always had this great belief in mindset, pro mindset, visualization, all of those things? Or is that something that has come later on in your career?
I would say that one brick at a time, one client at a time, one draft class at a time, I kept adding, because what happened would be I couldn't believe that somebody did something really great that nobody expected. The team didn't expect. I didn't expect. I didn't even talk about it with the client. He's doing these great things. And so I would debrief with him like, hey man, what were you thinking? How did you prepare for that? What did you do differently? And I just kept basically a diary of what that successful person did. And at the same time, I would have somebody that looked like Tarzan, played like Jane, somebody that had the perfect attributes, arm length, body type, all that stuff was perfect, but he was struggling. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Oh, my coach doesn't like me. Really? Okay. It'd be something that would throw him off. And, or he thought he didn't love the game. He was playing because his dad wanted him to play. He wasn't even playing because he wanted to play. Well, guess what? That never ends well for a player. It's got to be internal. It's got to be intrinsic. It's got to be real. You can't play for other people. If you're playing to buy your mama a house and you make enough money to buy your mama's house and you buy her house, what are you going to do now? You're not going to play anymore because you don't even love it. So I would say pro mindset organically grew out of real life experiences that I had with my clients over a long period of time, where sometimes it was beautiful and sometimes it was very disappointing.
Yeah, that makes sense. In the last 35 years, has there been any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Oh, lots of bumps. Lots of bumps. I learned that there's some that I can control, some that I can't. So anything that I couldn't control, I let it go. I think early on, I thought I could control everything. You can't control everything. I think I became much more, over the years, conversational with the NFL people instead of confrontational. So it's better to be conversational than confrontational, because we're all looking for the same thing. They want to win. Your client wants to get paid. He wants to win. So I would say over time, I learned that you're partners with people. You're not enemies. And you don't always have to agree. You don't have to settle, but you can still be in partnership with the team to get your client the most money instead of being adversaries.
There are many young people listening, people early on in their careers. If they have aspirations to work in sports and maybe become a sports agent as well, what is some advice that you have for them?
Here's some general advice for all young people. Because one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be 60. And you're going to be like, wow, that happened fast. That was a lot quicker than I expected. Because the days sometimes are long, but the years and the decades are fast. So my recommendation is, whether it's in sports or it's in something else, go for it, chase your dream, really give yourself an opportunity to contribute to the global world by showing who you are and what you're passionate about. And don't put it on the back burner. Don't take the job that pays the bills and you'll say, well, hey, when I make enough money, I get a big enough house, I've got a nice ride, then I'll do it. My advice is do it now. Go for it. Do it now. Follow your passion, follow your dreams, because if you're passionate, you'll be better. I've only had one job I didn't like, and it was before I went to law school. And I'm sure I probably wasn't very good at it either because I didn't enjoy it.
What was it?
Accounting.
That's what you said before.
Yeah, put me to sleep.
Yeah. But just because it was like mundane tasks or not?
There was no freedom. It was very regimented. So like in representation, you're dealing with different personalities, different people, different teams, different situations. Some people are starting their career. Some people are ending their career. Some people are dealing with injuries. There's a lot of life in representing athletes. Or in accounting, it was more regimented. I felt like I was in prison.
Yeah. But still a learning. Then you knew that that's not what you wanted, and then you could pivot in your career.
That's true.
That's what I say about internships, that I think that they are great because either you learn that you like something or that you don't like something. So you will learn something either way.
Both of those are valuable.
Yeah, exactly. If the listeners or viewers wants to like read up more on you, maybe book you for a speaking engagement, whatever, where can they go to find more info?
CraigDomann.com. You can go to Pro Mindset. You can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn and everywhere else. Look in the show notes, I'm guessing, and you'll have some information.
Yeah.
But I'd be happy if somebody's in Europe, I can do something virtually like we're doing today. Somebody's an athlete and they want to learn about what NIL's about, by all means, reach out.
That's awesome. And I will definitely put the links in the show notes as well. Craig, it's been amazing chatting with you today. Thank you so much for joining Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow the podcast on Instagram, X, and Facebook @SportsMPodcast.
Everyone deserves to feel safe at home, yet a home fire is reported every 96 seconds, and only 1 in 4 families have practiced a fire escape plan. Kidda, a trusted leader in fire safety for more than 100 years, offers a free digital fire drill simulator that uses augmented reality for an immersive fire safety education experience, available in both English and Spanish. All you need is a phone or tablet and an internet connection to access Kidda's Prepare Plan practice tool. Visit cause4alarm.org and try it today.